One of the saddest things that I hear about on a regular basis as a pastor and also as someone who's been a Christian for a little while now is when somebody has chosen to no longer claim their allegiance to Jesus Christ, meaning that they have chosen to not either believe in their language, they have chosen to not have faith, they've chosen to deconvert, whatever the language is. It's one of the saddest moments for me as a person, and I know that it's sad for so many other people that are in their lives as well. The loss of someone's salvation is something that you question. It's theological, it's relational, it's metaphysical, and that it feels so much deeper than just somebody choosing to believe or not believe something. Like, it's a huge thing. And unfortunately, I think that the Christian church over the last, I'd say at least 100 years, has not done a good job at rightfully helping people process through their doubts. I think that many people, and I believe this because I'm a pastor and I've been a pastor for a while, I'm pastoring a church of a lot of young people, is that when people doubt, they struggle immensely with their faith. They believe that their doubts are not allowed. They believe that doubts about the Bible, about the theologies that are in the Bible, that their experiences with God, they when they come to an issue like evolution or the days of creation, or did the sun really stand still in the days of Joshua, like all of these things, like they get so wrecked by what they perceive as doubt. And they may say from their church tradition, oh, I'm being attacked, I'm struggling with doubt, or oh, I'm dealing with the difficult circumstances, the enemy's really coming after me. But when someone chooses to let their doubts then transition them into a season or a lifetime of disbelief, it's so sad and so discouraging, because I believe that doubt is actually not bad. And I think that doubt should actually be something that invigorates someone's faith. And actually, God in the Old Testament tells the Israelite people while they're in exile, he actually tells them to come to him and reason with him. Use their logic, use their processing, use their whatever they're going through. And they were in a serious situation of sin and brokenness. And it's often the case that many of us doubt our faith when we're not near to God, when we go through suffering, when we go through heartbreak, when maybe some sort of destructive thing is taking place in our life, we doubt. And what I love about God is he says, come reason with me. But what I fear for the church and for people like you and for people like me is that we are often told that God actually doesn't want you to reason with him. You should just have faith. You should just believe. You should do all these things. And so what ends up happening is you have people that want to love Jesus, but because they struggle with doubt, because they have specific things that they banked their faith on that they no longer believe in, they then choose to disbelieve in Jesus. And I want to challenge that misconception, that misnomer in this class. I want to help you feel the acceptance of your doubt, process through it, and actually think about your experience, the apologetic arguments for Jesus, the history arguments, our archaeological evidence, the amazing birth of the church evidence. I mean, all these amazing things that took place. I want you to handle all of those in conjunction with your doubt and realize that your doubt may actually help you progress in your faith and grow in your faith, and that apologetics can be actually in your favor if you handle them appropriately. So what I have before me are two different scenarios. You see Legos. Legos are awesome. You can build a ton of stuff with them. My children love Legos and builder blocks, if we're trying to be all nonchalant about who owns this brand. But I also have cards here. Now, what often happens for people who are struggling with doubt in their faith and have become Christians or were Christians growing up is the way that they think about believing in Jesus is with cards. So what will happen is I have a blank card here, and someone like you, someone like a friend of mine at our church, someone like one of our elders, doesn't matter who it is, they will, in a spiritual sense, they will take this playing card, and for them, this playing card has a deep significance for a view that they have. So let's say you grew up your entire life believing that unless God created the world in 6 days, we can't believe the Bible. 6-day creationism, you have to believe this. So that gets imprinted into your faith. 6-day creation. Okay? My handwriting is terrible, but this is it, man. Like this helped you believe. Like, I believe the Bible. I believe in 6-day creation. Okay, so you got this card. And that's there. And you're like, I'm not sure what to do with that, but you're young in your faith and you haven't really thought through the bigger questions of it yet. So you leave that there and it's just a part of your faith. And then you've got this other thing. Let's say it's the sun stand still moment in the Old Testament, right? So sun stand still. Okay? So now you have two beliefs that you've come to adopt. The sun stood still in the universe, and the universe was created in 6 days. Cosmological implicating thing. I mean, these are huge views, okay? So you have these, and then you start building on with this mindset. You have these cards, you start taking all these other things, okay? So now you've had some really powerful prayer experiences with Jesus. You're at a prayer meeting, someone prophesied over you. So you have an incredible prayer experience, okay? So we write that down in our faith. Okay, that's a part of my faith. Prayer experience, amazing. And then you start getting all these other ones, but they're not as important as the first couple, right? So now you've got the belief that Jesus really did rise from the grave. It's a big one. That is literally the core of Christianity. Then you've got speaking in tongues. Another experiential thing, okay? So let's just stop with these right here, okay? We've got 5 core beliefs that started with 6-day creation and then went to, okay, I'm going to believe that the sun stood still. So we're like, you know what? I'm going to build my faith. I'm going to take my time. My faith is very tender. It's very sensitive. I can't let something fall because that would be detrimental to my faith. And then we go, okay, but remember that one time I had that prayer experience, and that prayer experience proved to me that God was real. So, prayer experience, and because I know that God's real and he created the world in 6 days, and because the sun stood still, my speaking in tongues experience and my prayer experience was very incredible. Okay. I think I've got a pretty solid faith. That's what a lot of people struggle with. And then, man, Jesus rose from the grave. Like he rose from the grave. I am so confident in this belief. There's my faith. And now I can start building more on and more on and more on. And then, but what happens if this individual, maybe this is you, goes to university, maybe you're actually pursuing a medical degree, you go through biochemistry, you go through molecular biology, whatever the class is, and you come to the belief that it is a high probability that humanity has actually existed for more than 6,000 years and they didn't come from a pair, Adam and Eve, but quite possibly came from many people. Well, the problem now is that the 6-day faith belief is here, and you just took that out. So what happens is this falling apart of a house of cards faith is exactly what happens when people believe that doubt is not appropriate, when you base your faith off of beliefs that have there's no flexibility at all, there's no opportunity for any movement, and you build them off of specific views, and you build. Well, the problem is that the moment you pull one card out, all of a sudden someone says, I'm denying my faith in Jesus. I can't believe in Jesus anymore. I can't believe in God anymore, and I'm done. And this whole deconversion experience takes place simply because somebody is under the belief that they have to build their faith in the way that I just described. This justifies this, justifies this, justifies this, but you pull one out and it's all over. And then you're left without any faith. I would argue that that is not correct and that is not biblical at all. The way that Jesus talks about faith is about foundations. And the way that he describes faith is called allegiance. It's the Greek word for, it's called pistios, which means to abide in, to trust in, to place one's foundation upon. And so the best way that I like to describe what faith can and should look like while you're doubting, while you're struggling, while you're learning, while you don't know about evolution and creation and the cosmos and all this craziness, right? Like all that stuff is you start with a foundation, and a foundation should begin with a genuine encounter with Jesus. You pray to him. Maybe you don't even believe in him, but you pray to him. You experience him. Something foundational in the depths of your soul takes place, and you have a foundation. It's this platform, okay? That happens. From there, you begin to build other platforms. This, for me, is an experiential platform. This is moments in my life where I can look back and there is something that happened in me, in my soul, there is no reasonable explanation for what God did in my life. There is no evolutionary explanation. There is no sociological explanation. God moved. He caused me to be convicted of my sins. He gave me hope that I could never experience before. This is something that C.S. Lewis talks about in Mere Christianity, where there is a longing deep within us that gets satisfied only because God actually exists, and nothing in the created world can actually cause it to satisfy you except for God. So I have a foundation there. Then I have another foundation. This foundation is the belief that Jesus is most probably and most likely a real human being that lived in the first century, was a first century Jewish man, and that he was crucified by the Romans, which historically we know to be a fact, and don't let any historian tell you otherwise. Those are not good historians. Jesus was a real first century Jewish man from Palestine who was crucified by the Romans, and for some reason the world was changed after 3 days after he rose from the grave. Wow, okay, great foundation. Then the fact that the world itself has moral order, that God maybe is having the entire world abide by specific things. There's a moralness to the world that we can't explain in any other way. And then you have other stuff. Maybe you're a science nerd, and so you have cosmological foundations or different beliefs. But you start building. Maybe you're an outdoor person, and you're like, man, the creation itself is so beautiful. There's no other explanation other than God. So I have experiential. I have history. I have cosmological. I've got creation, beauty, whatever it is. And then in my faith, what I choose to do is I allow different experiences to build on my experience platform. So I put this one on there. I had an incredible worship night encounter, and I place it there. And then I came across an incredible argument about how the universe had to have a beginning, that you can't have a universe without a beginning, that there's no such thing as an infinite universe. And so that goes on my cosmological platform. And then let's say I get another piece of knowledge that builds on top of my cosmological argument, that the fact that the universe is completely fine-tuned, that there's something very unique about our universe that can't be explained in any other way. And the multi-universe theory is actually preposterous, by the way, so don't worry about that. And then more evidence comes out about Jesus's resurrection, that there actually is maybe some documents that we can go back to in Roman culture about Jesus. And then, there was this guy named Josephus who actually wrote about Jesus and wrote about the Christian movement. And then you start building, and what you have here, friends, is this platform that over the course of 50 years, let's say, it is built. Well, what happens if one argument falls apart? Well, one piece falls apart. I still have this foundation, and this foundation, and this foundation, and this foundation. Now, let's say I take this foundation off, cosmological. I'm not convinced that there's enough evidence for a cosmological argument for the existence of God. I'm just not convinced anymore. Well, I still have experiential, I still have a historical evidence, and I still have whatever other foundation I've built on with God. Now, a true dismantling of someone's faith with doubt would be that every single piece begins to fall apart and you are left with this one final foundation, which would be, did you genuinely encounter God, or did you make it up for some weird reason? And if someone gets to that point, that is true deconversion. But I would suggest to you that this building of a foundation is the way that you should work through your doubts. See every single doubt as an opportunity to build a foundation and let them be siloed in your soul. And then as things build up, let them build up. And as things fall apart, let them fall apart. But let your foundation be your experiences with Jesus and the truth of who Jesus is. And let the foundations build. And so this immaculate, huge thing can come from it. And that's when you meet people who have foundational faiths that won't be shaken. That's what Jesus is talking about. That's the type of faith. That's what allegiance means. And so in this masterclass, I just wanted to encourage you. Doubt, find evidence, build foundations. Don't build them like a house of cards that's just going to fall apart, but build them on these great foundations. And then when one falls away, don't freak out about it. Build up the other foundations for a period of time and then work your way back to these ones. So that way, while you're in the midst of your doubt, you're benefiting from it. You're learning from it, and then your foundations are stronger because of it. So I would encourage you, when you're working through the workbook, list out doubts that you have, list out struggles that you have, list out arguments you wish you knew existed, and also look into the reference section we have in the book. That way you can begin to find other ways that you can build your foundation, because you're not going to build it on your own. You're going to be able to build it with others around you and the church around you. So check that out, fill out the guide, work through this, and start looking at, do a self-examination. Where do I have foundations and where can I build from? And then go from there over the next couple days and weeks ahead. So get rid of the cards and build the Lego foundations, friend. It's a great way to build your faith.